ABC. It is Old Metal Rocker 65 here, and I have episode number 2 in my Flashback 70s episode here. So yeah, number 2 here, 6 bands I'm gonna kind of go over and go through. Music playing, of course, in the background will kind of follow the album I show you. Most of this will be just solid play. I'm not going to skip around from track to track. So, but if you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. You'll get updates of future videos. And don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment below on anything you need or want to know about. And I also want to say that my prayers go out to all the victims out in LA of those horrific, catastrophic wildfires that have destroyed pretty much almost, well, not all of LA, but the surrounding area around there. Just horrific. Never seen anything like this my entire life, and my prayers go out to you and your loved ones. May God bless you. Anyway, so now, episode number 2 of Flashback 70s. Playing in the background is one of the bands that's going to be featured here, but I'm going to talk about this first band. But this is a kind of a 2-in-1 album from Earth and the Flying Hat Band. Of course, we're listening to the Flying Hat Band. To me, this is just a little bit more rocking, a little bit more harder edged. Early Glenn Tipton, of course. If you don't know who Glenn Tipton was, went on to form Judas Priest and one of the founding members. But the Flying Hat Band, they only had 4 tracks that they really basically produced. This was one of them. But Earth, of course, if you're not familiar with Earth, was pre-Sabbath, Black Sabbath. They were kind of a psychedelic band from like 68 to 69, and they kind of changed direction. But a lot of the Earth stuff is kind of a bluesy hard rock, a little bit of psychedelic in there, unlike what they would become, which is, you know, probably the godfather of heavy metal, Black Sabbath. But I just found that the Flying Hat Band was just a little bit harder edged, so I decided to just show you that. But here is the vinyl here. The Flying Hat Band, and of course Earth. And I want to say, let's see here. I believe this here is Tony Iommi, and then Ozzy Osbourne, and then I believe right there is Glenn Tipton. But some early stuff. This was put out a number of years back. But fantastic stuff. If you've never heard this, definitely, I would definitely check it out and see what you think. But yeah, great stuff, fantastic stuff. Flying Hat Band, Earth and Flying Hat Band. Number 2 comes from a UK band. And by the way, both of those bands were all UK bands. Of course, Flashback 70s really is going to be a video about obscure bands from the 70s, whether it's like hard rock, bluesy hard rock, early incarnations of doom, incarnations of early metal, you know, from bands we know and bands we don't know. And of course, Earth and Flying Hat Band were 2 bands that formed 2 great bands. Black Sabbath, Judas Priest. Up next is a band of, let's see, these guys I believe are out of the UK as well. Of course I got to have a little help here. But let's see here. Get rid of this. Open this up. Anyway, let's get on to our next one. This is going to be a little bit, just one track from a band out of the 70s as well, a band called Boxer and Below the Belt. They only did 3 albums. And this is the one cover you want, actually. But just some killer hard rock. And it is on the Virgin label. I'm sure you can see that. But Boxer, Below the Belt. And a little bit about Boxer. They were formed by keyboardist Mike Pato and Ollie Halsall in '75, signed to Virgin Records, of course. 3 albums followed, which was this one here, which was their first, Below the Belt, Absolutely, Below the Belt in '75, Absolutely '77, and Bloodletting in '79. I do have all 3. They also feature Bobby Tench and Boz Burrell as well. And after the album Absolutely, the band dissolved. And Pato died March 4th of 1979. I do have some early Pato stuff, however you pronounce it. But Boxer, killer stuff. This kind of reminds me of well, this is earlier than yesterday than today, kind of their albums Struck Down and their self-titled one. It has this kind of a similar hard rock style, but killer stuff from Boxer. Below the Belt from '75. Up next is a band that formed in '72, actually, and this has Andy Fraser in there. Of course, if you're familiar with Andy Fraser, of course, Andy was in Free. Of course, when that band dissolved, 2 of the members of Free formed Bad Company. Of course, Paul Kossoff went on his own, and Andy Fraser went on his own, and he formed the band Sharks. And they were signed to Island Records. And but they didn't really put out a lot of music. But anyway, this is Sharks here. Of course, this has Andy Fraser, Marty Simon, Chris Spedding, and Snips. If you're familiar with Snips on vocals, he was also in the vocalist for Baker Gurvit's Army. And but yeah, they put out this is First Water. Killer stuff. You know, this band kind of was formed, reformed a number of times. Of course, Snips, like I said, went on, played with Ginger Baker and Adrian Gurvitz and Baker Gurvit's Army. And they were 93, they started to record again. Didn't really do a whole lot, you know, the 10s. And it really isn't a whole lot. They did happen to put out this one, which was their debut in '73. And they put out Yabbit in Your Eye, '74, Music Breakout, '74, Like a Black Van Parked on a Dark Curve in '95, and Killers of the Deep in 17, and Ready, Set, Go in 2018. So they are still producing music, you know. Again, these are bands probably not for everybody, but I grew up in the 70s and I love this stuff. Some of these bands were not accessible from my region of the country, of course, being a small town on the Minnesota, North Dakota border, you know, just a small community of probably 3,000. So not a lot of record shops. So a lot of this stuff wasn't around this area. We only were able to get what was popular on rock radio and you know, local bands and stuff and so forth. Maybe a few imports, depending on the store. But anyway, Sharks with Andy Fraser. Hope you enjoyed all that. Number 4 comes from a band, another UK band. Killer band. Maybe definitely hard rock, bluesy hard rock. Maybe they add a little soul, maybe a little funk, maybe a little jazz into their sounds. These guys were active from 69 to 74, and I'm talking about Tucky Buzzard and the Buzzard album. And this came out in 73. My intro to Tucky Buzzard was All Right on the Night, you know, and I picked that up in Duluth, Minnesota back in, I think about 78. And I had since found all the rest of these Tucky Buzzards. Killer hard rock. Again, probably a band that people aren't too familiar with. But still, killer stuff. I mean, they were around, like I say, from 69 to 73, I believe, is what I had mentioned. 74. All albums are great. If you ever come by them, definitely pick them up. I love this black and white cover version, the Tucky Buzzard. But killer stuff. Killer stuff. So hope you all enjoy the Tucky Buzzard. Let me know what you think. And let's move on to number 5. Artist that I'm very familiar with, both as solo artist, as bandmates in other bands, and one of my favorite albums from the Gervitz brothers was Baker Gervitz Army, Elasian Encounters. To me, that is a fantastic release. I mean, it has its heaviness in parts. It could be it has a little progressive elements into it. The vocals fit the music perfectly. I mean, Ginger Baker's drumming is fantastic. Just a great album. But, you know, after that, you know, Paul and Adrian went on and they formed a 3-man army here, number 3. And let's see here, 3-man army. Let's see here. There it is. This came out in recorded in 73 and released in 2005. So fairly, it's 20 years old. So, but just some killer hard rock from Three Man Army. Three Man Army. Few albums out. Of course, the Three Man Army, of course, is Adrian Gervitz, Paul Gervitz, Mike Kelly in drums on all but one track, and Buddy Miles drums on one track and organ on 9 tracks. So killer stuff. Again, bands probably to the most commercial side of the people that listen, you know, the top 40 radio or, you know, classic rock bands, like they'll know those bands, but these are pretty much underground to most of those people, or a lot of these are. But man, so good. Three Man Army, number 3 there. Last one coming up here, guys. Another UK band. And also, they're kind of, they do progressive rock, maybe some jazz, jazz fusion. But these guys are fantastic. They were founded by Thomas Crimble and Alvin Pope in the summer of '68. When they formed this band here, Skin Alley and Two Quid Deal. Came out in '73 on Stack Records. Killer organ. But they do have a few albums out. Of course, Skin Alley, which is their self-titled, came out in '70. To Pagham and Beyond '70, Two Quid Deal '72, and Skin Tight, which I do have. I don't have the other two. But this kind of, it just kind of dawned on me. This kind of has a, well, a Black Crowes vibe with the crows on her. I mean, with the cover, kind of similar. Well, not really similar, but it has that vibe to me. You know, with the cartoon characters. So, but I mean, great unheard bands from back in those days. Fantastic stuff. Still out there. Got to search for it. A lot of this stuff I don't know if you'll find in the wild anymore. You might. Bigger cities, yes. But where I live, I have to travel about 50 miles to go to a used store. But 2 of those are closing due to COVID related businesses. They said they've lost most of their business during the COVID peak and they haven't come back. So therefore they're closing here in January, and then there'll be one up there, but I don't really go up there much anymore. What they do have as far as used is not really my thing. He doesn't carry what I look for. But anyway, Squid Alley, check them out. And again, episode number 2 of Fabulous 70s. Come back next week for episode number 3. Be surprised what you hear. Some bands you might like and know, and some you might not know and still like. So anyway, guys, we'll see you next time on Fabulous 70s. Take care, everybody.